All right, everybody, I'm Patrick, and we're going to go on a quick walkthrough of this little world I created. Basically, I don't really recommend working like this. What we're going to do here is we're going to go through the Unity project file for Coffee Grind Brains, the music video. If you've seen the video, good. If you haven't seen the video, interesting choice. And we're going to go do a quick overview of the behind-the-scenes making of this video. I spent probably about, total about 8 months on this, but really endless working on it. There was a few months off there and quite a few periods in there where I was just not working on it much during the week, particularly because I had a full-time job. I was doing this in the evenings. A lot of stuff that is very poorly organized. Definitely the thing that I learned the most in this whole project is the value of organization. You know, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me, and I'll answer them somewhere. Maybe meet the mayonnaise and come all the way back. All right. So we're going to cover a lot of different things here today. It's going to be slightly technical, but you know, really it doesn't assume that you know anything. It's really just about how this was all put together. All right, so the first thing I'm going to show you, which you can see right now, is how very different the video looks without post-processing on. It looks pretty horrendous. Let me see if I can make it a little bit bigger for you here. It's wildly different looking. And this was because I had settled on this really glowing post-production vibe here. See if I turn it on, hugely different. Lots of glow, lots of depth of field. The depth of field is a little screwed up right now in this version. But yeah, so all of this warm pink glow is totally gone when you take that post-processing off. I don't really recommend working like this. I had sort of settled on this post-processing profile of all the glow and huge stylized color correction from the very beginning. So very rarely did I look at what the scene looked like without the post-processing on, and thank God. But generally, a good rule of thumb is to have it look sort of how you want it to look without the post-processing on, and then put that on. Clearly, I did not do that here. The other interesting thing is that this was, after some hemming and hawing, this was designed to be just done for screens, which meant I could lock out the camera and then build the scene to whatever the camera could see. So, for instance, as soon as you pull this camera away from the angles that it's meant to be at, it just falls apart instantly. So I guess a clear example of that is like these trees. These trees don't exist in places where the camera doesn't see them. So if we look up here from this high angle view, they're just not placed anywhere where they were. So they were all hand placed. Same with all these clouds, they were all hand placed. But this is the project file. If you're one of those people that's into Unity, this is the timeline. It's just one big old timeline with activation tracks for different words. Each one of these tracks here activate the appearance of a new word on screen. So once you place them all in space with the camera move, you can turn them on and off at the right moment of this song. So a little tedious, but it's actually a pretty solid system of just, once you figure it out, it's a couple of steps that you can work your way through. All right, and this camera move, I remember spending a lot of time on that. I wonder if we could take a look at the keyframes on that. So really what makes this shot work is all the camera animation, because it's one long shot. It's all done to be as smooth as possible, and camera animation can trick people up a lot at first, but really it's like a lot of animation. You just want to try and keep it to as few keyframes as possible and keep it all nice and smooth. So I just want to take a quick detour here and look at the camera keyframes. So these are all the keyframes. They're all hand done for the main camera animation. And in this case, the X is left to right, as you might expect. So you can see here, the camera's just kind of going real slowly and steadily from left to right over the set. But then we get this big spike here, and that's when we shoot all the way out into the right into space. All right. But again, it's a pretty simple shape. Keep it simple. And actually, a lot of these could probably be removed, but my guess is that a lot of these keyframes were actually just minor tweaks, especially I know right here to get the camera to move in the right way to swipe. There's some extra finagling being done here to really nail that time. So the Y keyframes here, also really simple. This is just up and down, so how high off the ground the camera is going to be. So pretty steady, a little floaty here, and then it slowly flies up as he gets large, and then we float back down, hover around the ground for a little bit. As we go into space, we dip down, create some forced perspective, come back up. Take a look at the Z again real quick. I don't mean to belabor this, but if you just see that these are a relatively smooth curve, that's your first sign of at least decent animation. And any of these sort of jumbled up points here should be suspicious. They're not really adding to the curve shape, but in this case, I'm sure they were added to sort of make a lot of these transitions work. All right, so once you lock the camera position in, that really frees you up to do a lot of stuff. So like I was talking about earlier, you can add the trees in because you know the trees are only going to be seen in that shot. But really critical for this video is all the words, the lyrics. I decided early on, because the structure of the song doesn't have a typical like chorus repetition or anything like that. All the lyrics are unique. There's no repetition in there. And they're really beautiful. So I wanted to really focus in on that. And I think it hopefully helps emphasize the singer's voice there too. But yeah, I always loved lyrics. I thought they sounded beautiful. So I just hand wrote them out in Photoshop using a little tablet, broke them out into different blocks, put those blocks in here as individual quads. I'll show you here. They're just flat planes in space. And if you take a look at each one in the timeline manager down here, all of the words are they're just turned on and off with activation tracks. They're not even animated. All of the animation on the words, the way that they scale up and down, is just done procedurally with a script that I have right here. A super simple script. Looks way more complicated than it is. It's just a lot of this is in here so that I can have a couple options to tweak around with which was really great for prototyping and designing, but now they all have the same values for the most part. With the exception of the last handful of words, when the mayonnaise is on screen, I use these parameters up here that I put in there to tweak the direction that they fly off at the end. So instead of just get smaller and then die, they fly off backwards into the right or backwards into the left. So it's all using the same script, just with different parameters on there. Anyways, that's probably as technical as I'm going to get. If you'd like to see this script, I can give it out to you. I should do a much better job of documenting this, but I was the only one that's going to see it, so I could be as messy as I wanted. I guess it's terrible way of thinking. So Chile turns on, Petit turns on, Forest turns on, Cliff in Madrid. And the scripts aren't running in the editor right now. They run when I play the video. So, but what's happening every time that this track exists? So, boom, Chile turns on. Look at all them words. So while we're down here, we'll dive into timeline a bit, because timeline was something that was really obviously very critical in the production of this, and I'm happy to see that they keep adding to it. Yeah, so in terms of the different loops, so this is a loop. There's he's got a walk cycle that I made, a hopping walk cycle, and a jumping jack walk cycle, which is both used for his space floating and his walking at the very end. They're just timed very differently. So this is his little... So yeah, this is his regular walk cycle. Right here is when he gets big and he transitions into his hopping walk. And then that one just gets loops for a long time. He disappears, he comes back. And this is a very, very slowed down jumping jack cycle. And at the end, it's the same cycle again of the jumping jacks, but sped up a whole lot. So he's got this kind of weird hop to him, which I enjoyed. And that screen in the background pops out. You don't see that with the post-processing effects on, because all the fog gets added up to that point so high that you would never even know that there was anything back there in the first place. So add a lot of fog in. Covers up a lot of stuff in the background. That's what I can tell you there. All right, so that's cool and all, but you've seen it from the camera's view before, and really, you don't get to see how broken it all is until you take the camera back and go where it wasn't supposed to be, because this stuff was not built to be seen from any other perspective. So we'll fly around here. So first things you can see is that this house is just a mess. And this is the way it is at the very beginning of the video. And this box here, this sort of rectangular, whatever, spread out thing, that's the camera in its field of view. Then you can see it swing out. So it goes in, swings out, gets a really long lens. They all fly off into the distance. And all this text here is like, sort of looks like it's all similar plane, but it's really all spread out at these distances here to get a nice parallax as they move. I should say as the camera moves there. The camera comes back in. Just a little, very cheap trick there. The guy, Shower Boy, as we call him, that is his official name, according to me, so deal with it. So yeah, he just runs out there and he just gets bigger as he disappears and he's off camera. He just zooms right back to where he would be and then slides into frame there. So definitely some tricky timing on that one, but it was definitely the easiest choice in this case. Again, another camera just like flies in and tightens up and then widens out as he moves by. Again, just simple animation curves to make that nice and smooth. Don't overdo it on the keyframes. I spent a lot of time on this facade. It just was one of those things that I felt like really the look of this was kind of key to the video. And I love the way that it looks now with this sort of dark early evening lighting and the nice glow on the sign. And of course the going out of business signs and deal posters. So that's that. I'm especially proud of that. Got to reuse one of probably my first rigged experiment back there, that little horse thing. I was kind of amazed I even had it laying around. I just figured I'd put some little otherworldly dog creature thing back there, hanging out, loitering in the no loitering sign by everybody's favorite ice machine. I spent an extreme amount of time trying to get this timing right on the sign. I don't even know if it's worth it. I don't know if it gets noticed. Let's see here. So that it would sort of pop on the frame that you recognize that snare hit there. But maybe it's only a second or third or 400th watch thing. Because I've seen it a lot. Oh shit, all my textures just disappeared there. So yeah, those purple things were textures. I don't know where they went. That's not good. Don't really care that much anymore now that it's done. All right, yeah, so I just turned the post-processing off, which does all the color correction, or distortion and motion blur and depth of field. But if you take a look at this here, you can see all the words here are just laying on top of the planet. And then the weirdest part, which the way that I animated this, it was just entirely in camera, so I didn't even, just to get the illusion right, I guess, but that satellite is actually extremely small compared to everything else in the scene. But the way that we end up doing this, in this case, accidental force perspective, the satellite ends up looking very large and in charge in this shot here.
So I've also found that this view back here is a really interesting way to look at it, when you can see all of the things turn off and on in sequence as the camera flies by, especially the sky and the land there, which you see just disappears right there. The whole land on the right side, or I guess the back side of the screen, disappears there. So that was actually because the camera was going to go through that ground there, and to prevent that I just turned it off. All right, so we see the land pop up back there. We get into the video store.
The sky turns off.
Because now we're inside and we can't see the sky anymore. The planet turns on, we fly through. Everything is different. Background is off. Lights change. See the shower boy fly back. And that's it.
This is just a semicircle that gets scaled up over time. Very simple shader on it. It covers up all that. I really like this little vignette here of the lawn chairs on top of the video store. I don't know if it really gets seen enough, but it's one of my favorite little things. I spent a lot of time on it. Just felt like a place that had such a beautiful view that people would hang out there. Back here is the Megalomart with the tire center. Little D-Boy is the drummer in the previous video. And likely drummer for future videos too. So at the beginning here we have this definitely just a reverse Simpsons opening of the clouds and the text, the title, but flying backwards into the house over this lake. But what's missing here in this shot is all of the stars. So let's see if I can turn these on here. Yeah, there we go. So this is just a particle emitter here. All these different stars. That's one particle emitter. Just a big giant box emitting these stars that are just a PNG that I drew. Again, each star is just a simple quad with a hand-drawn texture on it. It's the same texture too. It's not like I drew multiple stars. Should have, didn't. Maybe next time. While we're on that note, I guess we'll talk about all the stuff that went into making all these things. Everything was made here by me for the most part. I don't think any assets were reused. I used some plugins for the grass there. That's about it. The skybox I got from HDR Haven, which is great. Yeah, every model and everything was built. So we'll take a look at that real quick. There's sort of a master Blender file that everything exists in. All right, so we're going to just take a quick peek into Blender here and look at all the source material. If you've looked at the blog post yet, you can see that photo, I'll put it up here, I'm sure, of the cul-de-sac that I sourced from Google Images and really just tried to imitate that as much as I could. Reference imagery was really important on a lot of this. And you can take a look. These houses are a little more complicated than the others, but still really simple. It's just basic shapes added together. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or anything, let me know. Thanks.